Bucas Grande Island, part of the Siargao Island protected landscape and seascape in the Philippines, presents an image of lush mountainous beauty. Yet, from a remote enclave known as Sitio Capihan, nestled deep within this protected terrain, emerged disturbing allegations surrounding an organization named Socorro Bayanihan Services Inc, or SBSI. Initially established decades ago as a community-focused people's organization, SBSI now stands accused by former members, investigators and government bodies of operating as a destructive high-control group, often referred to as a cult, under the leadership of J. Renskilario, known to his followers as Senior Aguila. The accusations levelled against SBSI, particularly during Kilario's tenure, are severe and encompass a wide range of alleged abuses. Official investigations by the Philippine Senate, the National Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice, along with harrowing testimonies from survivors, point towards systematic child abuse, including the alleged forced marriage of minors, some reportedly as young as 12, to adult men. Accompanying these claims are allegations of sexual violence, purportedly sanctioned and sometimes even perpetrated by the leadership. Further allegations include physical abuse and torture of members perceived as disloyal, forced, unpaid labor, rampant financial exploitation where members were allegedly compelled to surrender significant portions of their income and government aid, and the maintenance of absolute control through geographic isolation, psychological manipulation, and pervasive fear within their mountain community. At the height of its influence in Sitio Capihan, the group reportedly numbered over 3,500 members, including an estimated 1,587 children living under Kilario's alleged authority. The very name, Socorro Bayanihan Services Inc, presents a stark and unsettling contradiction. Bayanihan is a deeply cherished Filipino cultural value representing communal unity, mutual help, cooperation, and the spirit of working together for the common good, often symbolized by neighbors physically carrying a house to a new location. This positive, community-oriented branding, which reflected SBSI's initial mission, stands in jarring contrast to the dark reality depicted by survivors and investigators, a reality allegedly characterized by exploitation, abuse, and the systematic stripping away of individual autonomy. Such dissonance between a group's public image and its internal practices is frequently observed in manipulative organizations. The benign facade invoking a respected cultural tradition like Bayanihan may well have served as an effective tool of deception. It could have masked the alleged harms occurring within, making it significantly more difficult for both outsiders and potentially early members to recognize the group's true nature, thereby delaying scrutiny and intervention. The remote location of Sitio Capihan within the protected landscape of Bucas Grande Island is more than just a setting. It appears to be a crucial factor enabling the alleged control. Geographic isolation inherently limits interaction with the outside world and reduces opportunities for external oversight. This physical separation can make it easier for leadership to control the flow of information, enforce internal rules without challenge, and foster a deep dependency among members, making the prospect of leaving both physically daunting and psychologically terrifying. This investigation delves into the disturbing alleged transformation of SBSI, tracing its path from a community service group to a high-control organization facing grave accusations. The story of Socorro Bayanihan Services Inc. begins not with controversy but with a spirit of community cooperation. Its origins can be traced back to the Tinabangay or Helping Each Other group, organized as early as 1974 in the municipality of Socorro, Surigao del Norte, by the late Don Albino Taruk. This initiative gained formal status on December 20, 1980, when the group was incorporated and registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission as a people's organization. Under the leadership of Don Albino and later his wife, Rosalina Nena Mulanida Lasala Taruk, SBSI's initial mission was squarely focused on the principle of Bayanihan, providing essential community services such as housing assistance, agricultural support, and burial services to the residents of Socorro town proper. It presented itself, and was likely perceived for many years, as an organization genuinely dedicated to mutual aid and collective well-being. A significant development occurred in 2004 that would prove pivotal in SBSI's trajectory. The organization was awarded a Protected Area Community-Based Resource Management Agreement, or PAC-BRAMA number 74007, by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. This 25-year agreement, signed on June 15, 2004, under the framework of the National Integrated Protected Areas System Act of 1992, granted SBSI specific rights and responsibilities over a substantial 353-hectare area in the northeast part of Barangay Sering, located on Bukas Grande Island. This land falls within the Siargao Island Protected Landscape and Seascape. The stated purpose of the PAC-BRAMA was for tenured migrant groups like SBSI to develop, utilize and conserve this portion of the protected area, operating within its designated multiple-use zone. In collaboration with the DENR, SBSI developed a community-based resource management plan, which was subsequently affirmed in 2013, further legitimizing their presence and activities in the area. The first documented signs of trouble related to SBSI's management of the PAC-BRAMA area emerged around 2019, coinciding with a pivotal leadership transition within the organization. The DNR initiated an investigation into alleged violations of the agreement. The reported violations were concerning indicators of increasing control and isolation. SBSI was accused of restricting entry into the 353-hectare area, establishing checkpoints, conducting military-like training exercises, and constructing unauthorized structures like new roads, a basketball court, a wave pool, a recording studio and a radio station. Around the same time, reports surfaced of an unusual number of professionals, including teachers, uniformed personnel such as police and military, and barangay officials resigning from their government posts to join SBSI, many relocating to the Capihan area. Videos reportedly showing SBSI members conducting military drills also began circulating online. Further indicating non-compliance, SBSI submitted an updated CBRMP in 2019, but the DNR disapproved it due to violations of the agreement's provisions. SBSI subsequently failed to resubmit a compliant plan. Further attempts by the DNR to address these recurring violations through warnings in 2021 and 2022 were met with silence from the organization. In late 2019, the then governor of Surigao del Norte, Francisco Matugas, reportedly ordered the creation of a task force to investigate these early allegations, though the outcome of this initiative is unclear from available reports. Two minor legal cases filed against the group that year for usurpation of authority and illegal use of insignia were ultimately dismissed by the local court due to lack of jurisdiction. These early red flags, particularly the access restrictions, unauthorized construction, militaristic activities, and the influx of former government personnel, were direct precursors to the more severe allegations of cult-like control that would later dominate headlines. They demonstrated a pattern of non-compliance, increasing secrecy, and questionable activities emerging years before the full extent of the alleged abuses became public knowledge, pointing towards potential weaknesses in the monitoring and enforcement mechanisms governing the PAC-BRAMA. Also in 2019, a significant event catalyzed the physical consolidation of the group in this isolated location. Following an earthquake that struck Surigao del Norte, J. Renz Kilario, whose influence was rapidly growing, reportedly convinced SBSI members to undertake a massive exodus from their homes in Socorro town proper to the remote mountainous Pacbama area, Sitio Capihan. This move was a major life change for many, involving members leaving their jobs and, significantly, pulling hundreds of children out of the formal education system. This physical relocation was instrumental in establishing the geographic isolation that is often a key feature of high-control groups, effectively severing members' ties to their previous lives and communities and concentrating them within the newly established enclave under emerging leadership. The earthquake, a natural disaster creating fear and uncertainty, appears to have been strategically leveraged, not just as a practical reason to move, but as a powerful psychological tool to initiate greater control and cement the group's isolation under a narrative of divine protection, a pattern often observed in groups seeking to exert undue influence over members by exploiting external crises. The alleged transformation of Socorro Bayanihan Services Inc. from a community organization into the controversial entity it became is inextricably linked to the rise of one individual, J. Renz B. Kilario, more commonly known by his alias Senior Aguila. Born on November 10, 2000 in Socorro, Kilario came from relatively humble beginnings. His father was a farmer and his mother a teacher. He was raised in the Philippine Independent Church IFI, where he served as an altar server. Although church leadership later noted he exhibited dubious actions even during that time. Described initially as having high grades and many friends, his formal education was cut short when he dropped out of Socorro National High School after only 2 years, around the time his family moved to the area that would become Sitio Capihan. Kilario joined SBSI in 2017. Despite his youth and incomplete education, he quickly gained prominence within the organization. He cultivated an artistic persona, presented by SBSI as a composer and musician, proficient with instruments like the guitar and drums. He led the affiliated performing arts group Omega de Salonera. SBSI claimed he was a member of the prestigious Filipino Society of Composers, Authors and Publishers, although PhilSCAP could only confirm a member shared the same name, not definitively identify that member as Kilario. He also became the Chief Executive Officer of ALT Entertainment, which operated a radio station, ALT FM 105.5, directly from Sitio Capihan, for which he reportedly wrote and produced songs, including Ari King King and a Christmas station ID. This media platform potentially provided another avenue for disseminating his message and consolidating influence within the isolated community. The critical leadership transition began in December 2019. Rosalina Nena Taruk, the group's co-founder, Kilario's former teacher and his mentor within SBSI, endorsed the then 19-year-old Kilario as her successor, reportedly making him president-elect. Sources suggest Kilario was initially hesitant to accept the role due to his young age. Following Nena Taruk's death on June 27, 2021, Kilario formally assumed the presidency at the age of 20. His ascent was crucially supported by Mamerto Galanida, a former 3-term mayor of Socorro, and a former DPED school superintendent who served as SBSI's vice president. Significantly, Surigao del Norte's governor later observed that the timeline for the emergence of serious abuse allegations within SBSI seemed to coincide with this 2019 leadership change. Taruk's endorsement provided essential internal legitimacy for the young leader, smoothing the transition in the eyes of long-term members. Simultaneously, Galanida's backing added significant political weight and an air of external respectability, given his background as a former high-ranking local official and educator. This combination of inherited legitimacy and apparent political cover likely proved instrumental in consolidating Kilario's authority despite his youth and lack of traditional qualifications. A pivotal event occurred in 2019, coinciding with Kilario's endorsement and the mass exodus to Sitio Capihan following the Surigao del Norte earthquake. Kilario allegedly began to weaponize the natural disaster, framing it not merely as a geological event but as a divine sign. According to testimonies from former members shared during Senate hearings and with investigators, he started claiming divinity around this time, presenting himself in various ways as God himself, as a reincarnation of the Santo Niño, and as a Messiah destined to save his followers. He reportedly preached that the earthquake heralded an impending catastrophe, a doomsday scenario, and that only those who followed him to the safety of the mountain enclave, Sitio Capihan, would achieve salvation. Disobedience, followers were allegedly told, meant eternal damnation in hell. Subsequent world events, like the Russian invasion of Ukraine, were reportedly incorporated into this apocalyptic narrative to reinforce the perceived urgency and the necessity of remaining isolated under his protection in Capihan. Kilario was also said to claim supernatural powers, such as the ability to stop rain or command birds to sing. Once relocated to the remote Sitio Capihan, SBSI members allegedly found themselves enveloped in a comprehensive system of control, touching nearly every aspect of their lives. The mechanisms employed, as described by survivors and investigators during Senate hearings and NBI probes, paint a picture consistent with tactics used by high-control groups or cults worldwide to exert undue influence over their followers. Isolation, geographic and social, the physical location of Sitio Capihan, nestled in the mountains of Bukas Grande Island within the Pac-Burma area, inherently created geographic isolation. This separation was allegedly reinforced by strict rules and practices designed to limit contact with the outside world. Our investigations as early as 2019 noted SBSI restricting entry into the area and establishing checkpoints. Later allegations emerging from survivor testimonies included children being forbidden from leaving the community until they were married, and members being actively discouraged or prevented from seeking essential outside services such as formal education or critical medical care, even in life-threatening emergencies. This enforced separation from mainstream society, family networks, and external sources of information fostered profound dependency on the group and its leadership for all physical, social, and informational needs. Psychological manipulation. Central to the alleged system of control was the manipulation of members' beliefs and fears. Kilario's purported claims of divinity, being the Santo Niño or a Messiah, served as the ultimate foundation for demanding absolute, unquestioning obedience. This was allegedly coupled with potent fear tactics, the constant threat of eternal damnation for disobedience, terrifying doomsday prophecies linked to real-world events like earthquakes and wars, and the ever-present fear of harsh earthly punishments for breaking the group's rules. Indoctrination into the group's specific ideology, such as the idea of being part of an army of God or residing in a modern-day Noah's Ark, where pairing up through marriage was essential for salvation, further cemented the group's unique worldview and the leader's indispensable role within it. These tactics appear designed to exploit fundamental human needs for belonging, security, and meaning, twisting them into unwavering loyalty and submission to the leader's authority. Behavior control. The group allegedly exerted meticulous control over members' actions and significant life choices. Forced labor. Numerous reports and testimonies allege that members, including minors, were subjected to mandatory unpaid labor, often involving constructing infrastructure within Sitio Capihan or performing other demanding tasks for the benefit of the organization. Military drills. SBSI is accused of maintaining a private militia, known variously as the Soldiers of God or the Agilas, or Eagles, estimated at around 150 strong. Members, again reportedly including minors, were allegedly forced to participate in military-style training exercises. While SBSI leadership claimed these were merely drills for civic volunteer search and rescue operations, the DNR noted these activities as Pakbrahma violations as early as 2019. Disturbingly, NBI investigations identified some of the trainers involved in these activities as former Philippine National Police (PNP) officers who had been dismissed from service. Forced marriage. Perhaps the most shocking allegation is the systematic practice of forced marriage reportedly orchestrated directly by Kilario. Testimonies vividly describe girls as young as 12 being paired with adult men, typically 18 or older, whom they often did not know. This practice was allegedly justified as a divine mandate, a rule to go to heaven, or likened to the biblical requirement for animals to enter Noah's Ark in pairs to survive the flood. Reports also indicate that members of the LGBT community and persons with disabilities were forced into heterosexual marriages against their will. Sexual coercion and rape authorization. The forced marriages were allegedly accompanied by explicit sexual coercion and violence. Multiple survivors testified during Senate hearings that Kilario explicitly authorized husbands to rape their child brides if the marriage was not consummated within a 3-day period. There are also deeply disturbing allegations that Kilario demanded some girl brides sleep with him first to be saved, or ordered couples locked in rooms to ensure sexual activity occurred, as alleged by survivor Chloe regarding SBSI official Janeth Ajok. Restricted education. Children's access to formal education was reportedly severely curtailed following the move to Sitio Capihan. Official records noted that over 800 learners dropped out of school in 2019, coinciding with the exodus, and 103 DPED personnel resigned their government posts to join SBSI. Attempts by the Department of Education, DPED, to implement the Alternative Learning System, ALS, within Capihan were met with minimal participation, while SBSI leadership, including Kilario, denied barring children from school during Senate testimony. The evidence presented, including corroboration from the Socorro mayor, suggested otherwise. Restricted healthcare testimonies allege that members were forbidden from seeking medical care outside the enclave, even in emergencies. This alleged policy has been linked by former members and investigators to numerous unrecorded deaths of infants and young children within Sitio Capihan. SBSI leadership has denied these claims. Political coercion. The group's influence allegedly extended into the political sphere. Members were reportedly coerced into voting for candidates endorsed by Kilario during the 2022 general elections, specifically the Marcos Duterte Uniteam slate. Election data confirms a significant concentrated voting bloc within Sitio Capihan. Information control. Maintaining the group's narrative and preventing dissent required strict control over the flow of information. The physical isolation of Sitio Capihan naturally limited access to outside news, alternative perspectives, and potential support networks. This was allegedly augmented by actively suppressing dissent through threats and severe punishment for questioning the leadership or rules. Critical thinking was discouraged, and the leadership's narrative, including denials of abuse, was presented as the only acceptable truth. The alleged prohibition on members receiving COVID-19 vaccinations serves as another example of controlling access to external health information and directives. The group's own radio station, ALT FM 105.5, operated from within Capihan, potentially served as a tool for disseminating propaganda and reinforcing the leader's message. Emotional control. Fear, guilt, and shame were allegedly potent tools used to maintain control over members' emotions and behavior. The threat of extreme and degrading punishments, such as being severely beaten with a paddle, confined in a dark, isolated pit, referred to as the foxhole, or forced to swim in the Aroma Beach, described as a pit filled with human excrement and urine, created a pervasive climate of terror. Public humiliation was also reportedly employed as a disciplinary tactic, such as branding girls who refused sex after forced marriage with the derogatory label adios, or forcing members perceived as disobedient to crawl on their knees to beg for forgiveness from the leader. Loyalty was manipulated through guilt. For instance, survivors recounted how their own parents reportedly refused to help them escape forced marriages because they believed it was the Messiah's will and feared divine retribution or group censure. This intense emotional manipulation aimed to create deep psychological dependency, foster intense loyalty born of fear, and make the prospect of leaving the group seem terrifying or impossible. Financial exploitation members were allegedly subjected to systematic financial extraction, contributing to the group's resources and deepening individual dependency. Reports indicate they were forced to remit substantial portions of their earnings and assets to the organization. This allegedly included anywhere from 40% to 60% of government social welfare benefits received by members, such as the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, 4PS, stipends and senior citizen pensions. Significant percentages of wages from labor, for example, 50% for carpenters, fish catches, 50%, and proceeds from selling personal property upon joining, 30%, were also allegedly demanded. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, DSWD, launched an investigation into the misuse of these government grants, and some SBSI members admitted during Senate hearings that they did indeed donate their stipends to the organization. This level of financial control not only likely enriched the leadership, but also served as a powerful mechanism of control, making it financially prohibitive for many members to even consider leaving the enclave, having potentially surrendered their life savings and assets. These various mechanisms did not operate in isolation, but formed an interlocking, mutually reinforcing system of control. Geographic isolation facilitated information control and prevented access to external support systems. Psychological manipulation, particularly the claims of divinity and impending doom, served to justify extreme behavioral demands like forced marriage and labor, as well as financial exploitation. Emotional control, wielded through fear of punishment and manipulation of guilt, enforced compliance across all domains. Financial control increased members' dependency and reinforced their isolation, limiting their options to leave. This comprehensive strategy, targeting multiple facets of human experience, behavior, information, thought, and emotion, appears deliberately designed to break down individual autonomy and ensure conformity to the leader's will, mirroring the patterns observed in recognized cultic groups around the world. Escaping such a system requires overcoming numerous, deeply interwoven barriers: physical, financial, psychological, and social.